Imagine this. You're driving home after a long, exhausting day. Your mind is occupied, replaying conversations, thinking about tomorrow's tasks, when suddenly, another driver cuts you off. Your heart pounds. Your hands tighten around the wheel. A rush of frustration floods your body. Before you even realize it, your foot presses harder on the gas. You slam the horn, maybe even yell something under your breath. Now, take a moment. Have you ever reacted like this, only to regret it later? Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment, during an argument at work or online, wishing you had paused just for a second before responding? If so, you're not alone. This is how the human brain is wired. Every day, we face situations that trigger automatic emotional reactions. Stressful deadlines, harsh words from a friend, unexpected criticism. These moments activate an ancient part of our brain that is designed to react quickly, to defend, to fight, to protect. And while this instinct might help our ancestors survive in the wild, in the modern world, it often leads to unnecessary stress, conflict, and regret. But what if you could change that? What if you could train your brain to slow down, process, and respond with intention instead of reacting on impulse? That's exactly what we're exploring today. The neuroscience behind reaction versus response. What actually happens in your brain when emotions take over? Why do we react so quickly, sometimes against our better judgment? And most importantly, how can we train ourselves to respond more rationally, calmly, and with greater control? By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of the brain's emotional mechanisms and, more importantly, practical, science-backed strategies to help you break free from impulsive reactions. You'll learn how to pause, reflect, and take control of your emotions in real time so you can make better decisions, strengthen your relationships, and move through life with greater clarity and confidence. So, if you ever found yourself caught in the cycle of reacting instead of responding, this video is for you. Let's dive in. Have you ever wondered why, in moments of stress or conflict, you react before you even have time to think? Why do certain situations trigger immediate emotional responses, even when they don't truly pose a threat? To understand this, we need to look inside the brain, specifically at two key areas, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It is a small, almond-shaped structure deep within your limbic system, responsible for processing emotions like fear, anger, and anxiety. When you perceive a threat, whether the car cutting you off, a critical email, or a heated argument, the amygdala activates almost instantly. It sends signals to release stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body to react. This is part of what scientists call the fight or flight response, an automatic survival mechanism designed to protect you from danger. This system is incredibly fast. In fact, your amygdala can trigger a reaction before your conscious mind even registers what's happening. That's why you might find yourself snapping at someone, raising your voice, or feeling overwhelmed before you even have time to process the situation logically. But there's another part of your brain that plays an equally important role, the prefrontal cortex. This is a rational, decision-making center located at the front of your brain. Unlike the amygdala, which reacts based on instinct and emotion, the prefrontal cortex analyzes situations, weighs consequences, and helps you make thoughtful decisions. The challenge is that the amygdala reacts faster than the prefrontal cortex. This means that when faced with a stressful situation, your brain's emotional system often overrides your logical thinking before you get a chance to pause and consider your response. Now, imagine you receive an upsetting message from a colleague. Your amygdala immediately perceives it as a threat and triggers a surge of frustration. You feel the impulse to fire back a reply, defending yourself. But if you give your prefrontal cortex even a few seconds to catch up, it steps in and helps you process. Is this really worth an argument? What's the best way to handle this? This delay, this small pause, can make all the difference between an impulsive reaction and a thoughtful response. So why does this matter? Because the more often we let the amygdala take control, the more it strengthens its influence. The brain works like a muscle. The pathways we use the most become stronger. If we are constantly reacting with frustration, anger, or stress, those patterns become our default. But if we train ourselves to pause, to engage the prefrontal cortex, we strengthen our ability to respond instead of react. This is not just theory. Neuroscience shows that practicing mindfulness, deep breathing, and cognitive reframing can actually rewire the brain, creating stronger connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. This means that over time, you can train yourself to remain calm, process situations clearly, and make better decisions, even under pressure. In the next section, we'll explore exactly how to do that. But first, let's break down the key difference between reacting and responding, and why it can change the way you navigate life. Reaction versus response. What's the difference? Now that we understand how the brain processes emotions, let's explore a critical distinction: the difference between reacting and responding. At first, they might seem similar. After all, both involve how we deal with situations. But in reality, they are very different. And understanding this difference can completely transform how you handle stress, conflict, and challenges in daily life. A reaction is instant, emotional, and automatic. It happens without much thought, driven by the amygdala's quick response to a perceived threat. Reactions are often fueled by emotion, anger, frustration, fear, or even excitement. And while they might feel satisfying in the moment, they often lead to regret, unnecessary conflict, or outcomes we didn't intend. Imagine this. You receive a text from a friend that sounds rude. Without thinking, you immediately reply with a defensive message. A few moments later, you realize you misunderstood their tone, but the damage is already done. That's what happens when we react. We don't take the time to process. We don't pause to think. We simply let emotions take control. Now, let's look at the alternative: a response. A response is thoughtful, intentional, and controlled. Instead of letting emotions dictate your actions, you pause, engage your prefrontal cortex, and consider the best course of action. Let's go back to the same example. You receive a text that seems rude, but instead of replying immediately, you take a deep breath. You ask yourself, could I be misinterpreting this? Maybe your friend was just being direct, or maybe they're having a bad day. So instead of reacting with frustration, you choose to respond calmly, asking for clarification. This small shift from reacting to responding can prevent unnecessary stress, improve communication, and help you make decisions that align with your values and long-term goals. But here's the challenge. Reactions are automatic. Responses require effort. The brain is wired to react first. That's why, in moments of stress, anger, or fear, our first instinct is often emotional. But just because something is automatic doesn't mean we can't change it. The key is training yourself to pause, to create a small space between the trigger and your action. In that space, you gain control over your choices. So the next time you feel the urge to react, whether it's snapping at someone, firing off an email, or making a rushed decision, ask yourself, do I want to react or do I want to respond? Will this action help or hurt me in the long run? What's the best way to handle this situation? This single moment of reflection can make all the difference. Now that we define the difference between reacting and responding, the next step is learning how to train your brain to make responding your default. In the next section, we'll explore practical techniques backed by neuroscience to help you develop this skill and take control of your emotions. How to train your brain to respond, not react. Now that we understand the difference between reacting and responding, the question is, how can we train our brain to make responding our default? The brain is adaptable through neuroplasticity. It can form new pathways that strengthen your ability to stay calm, think clearly, and choose your response instead of acting on impulse. The key is practice. The more you train, the easier it becomes. Let's explore 3 powerful techniques that will help you gain control over your reactions and develop the habit of responding thoughtfully. 1. The 6-second rule, creating space between stimulus and response. When faced with a stressful or emotional trigger, your brain releases adrenaline and cortisol almost instantly. These chemicals drive your fight or flight response, making you want to act immediately. But science shows that if you can wait just 6 seconds, the intensity of the emotional surge starts to decrease. This short pause gives your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, enough time to engage. How to apply it? When you feel an emotional impulse, pause for 6 seconds before responding. If possible, take a slow, deep breath while counting. Use this moment to ask yourself, What's the best way to handle the situation? This simple habit can stop impulsive reactions and give you time to choose a better response. 2. The 4-7-8 breathing technique. Calming your nervous system. Your breathing patterns are directly linked to your emotional state. When stressed, your breath becomes shallow and fast, fueling anxiety and impulsive reactions. Controlling your breath signals to your brain that you are not in danger, helping you regain control. A powerful method to achieve this is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 8 seconds. This technique reduces stress hormones, slows your heart rate, and shifts control from your emotional brain back to your prefrontal cortex. When to use it: before responding to a difficult email or message, when you feel yourself getting frustrated in a conversation, anytime you feel tension building and need to stay in control. 3. Cognitive reframing. Changing the way you see the situation. Your reaction to a situation is not just about what happens. It's about how you interpret it. The meaning you assign to an event determines your emotional response. For example, if someone speaks to you harshly, your immediate reaction might be to feel disrespected and react offensively. But if you reframe the situation, you might see it differently. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they didn't mean to come across that way. By shifting your perspective, you can change your emotional response. How to apply it: when something triggers you, ask, could there be another explanation? Is this really about me, or is this person reacting to something else? Will this matter a week from now? By practicing cognitive reframing, you stop taking things personally, reduce unnecessary stress, and develop a more rational, composed approach to challenges. 4. The power of journaling. Recognizing patterns and strengthening self-awareness. One of the most effective ways to train your brain is by reflecting on past reactions. When you write down what triggered you and how you responded, you start to notice patterns in your behavior. This builds self-awareness, which is a foundation of emotional control. How to apply it: at the end of each day, take 5 minutes to write about a moment when you reacted emotionally. Ask yourself, what triggered me? How did I react? What could I have done differently? If possible, write down a better response you could use in a similar situation in the future. Over time, this practice trains your brain to pause and reflect before reacting, making thoughtful responses more natural. 5. Mental simulation. Practicing your response before it happens. Just like athletes visualize a performance before a game, you can mentally rehearse how you will respond to challenging situations. This technique is known as premeditatio malorum, a Stoic practice that involves anticipating difficulties and preparing for them mentally. How to apply it: think of a situation that tends to trigger an emotional reaction, an argument, criticism, or a stressful work situation. Close your eyes and visualize yourself handling it calmly and rationally. Imagine yourself pausing, breathing, and choosing a thoughtful response instead of reacting impulsively. When the real situation happens, your brain will already be familiar with the process, making it easier to stay in control. These 2 techniques, journaling and mental simulation, help train your brain to recognize emotional triggers and prepare for them in advance. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to stay calm, process situations clearly, and respond with intention. Next, we'll explore how to apply these strategies in real-life situations, at work, in relationships, and in moments of high stress. Applying these techniques in daily life. How to use them effectively. Now that we've explored how to train your brain to respond instead of react, the next step is putting these techniques into action. The key to lasting change is practice, integrating these methods into real-life situations so they become second nature. Let's go through 3 common areas where learning to respond instead of react can make a significant difference: work, relationships, and high-stress situations. 1. At work. Handling stress and criticism. Workplace stress is a major trigger for emotional reactions. Whether the demanding boss, a tight deadline, or unexpected criticism, these moments can easily activate the fight or flight response. Scenario: you receive an email from your manager that feels harsh or unfair. Your instinct is to react immediately. Maybe you want to defend yourself or send a frustrated reply. How to apply the techniques. Pause for 6 seconds before responding. Take one deep 4-7-8 breath to calm your nervous system. Reframe the situation. Is this really a personal attack, or is your manager under pressure? Write a draft response, but wait 10 minutes before sending it. This allows your rational mind to take over. By responding instead of reacting, you maintain professionalism, reduce stress, and avoid unnecessary conflicts. 2. In relationships, managing conflict and misunderstandings. Arguments and misunderstandings with friends, family, or partners can quickly escalate when emotions take over. Often, we react offensively without fully processing what the other person is saying. Scenario: your partner or friend makes a comment that upsets you. Your immediate reaction is to snap back, raise your voice, or withdraw. How to apply the techniques: pause and breathe. Before reacting, take a moment to check in with yourself. Mentally reframe the situation. Instead of assuming bad intentions, ask, could they be expressing something else beneath their words? If needed, take a short break before responding. Let emotions settle before engaging the conversation. Use empathetic language when responding. I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about this calmly. By doing this, you avoid unnecessary fights and create space for meaningful conversations. 3. In high-stress situations, staying calm under pressure. Some moments push us to our limits, whether it's a traffic jam, a long line at the store, or a sudden problem that throws off our plans. These small frustrations can lead to immediate emotional reactions that increase stress and frustration. Scenario: you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Your instinct is to feel anxious, curse under your breath, or aggressively switch lanes. How to apply the techniques: use deep breathing to bring yourself back to the present. Accept what you can't control. Ask yourself, can I change this situation right now? If not, focus on what you can control, your reaction. Reframe the moment. Instead of seeing it as a waste of time, use it for something productive, like listening to an audiobook or practicing mindfulness. By shifting your response, you stay calm, reduce unnecessary stress, and maintain a sense of control. Building the habit, small, consistent actions. Training your brain to respond instead of react is a process. Here's how you can reinforce these habits daily. Start your day with intention. Take a minute each morning to remind yourself of your goal, to respond thoughtfully, not react impulsively. Use reminders. Place a sticky note on your desk or phone with a simple phrase. Pause, breathe, respond. Reflect at the end of the day. Before bed, think about a moment when you successfully responded instead of reacted. Over time, these small wins add up. Every day presents opportunities to choose your response, whether at work, in relationships, or during stressful moments. By applying these techniques consistently, you are not just improving your emotional control, you're reshaping your brain for long-term resilience, clarity, and inner peace. In the next section, we'll wrap up everything we've learned and explore the long-term benefits of mastering the art of responding instead of reacting. Throughout this video, we've explored the science behind reaction and response. We've seen how the brain processes emotions, why we react impulsively, and how we can train ourselves to pause, think, and respond with greater clarity and control. Now, the real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Remember, this isn't about suppressing emotions or ignoring how you feel. It's about creating space, a brief pause between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That small moment can change everything. It can help you avoid unnecessary conflict, strengthen relationships, reduce stress, and make decisions that align with your long-term goals. But like any skill, this takes practice. You won't change overnight. Some days, you'll still react on impulse, but that's okay. What matters is progress. Each time you pause before responding, each time you take a deep breath before speaking, you're strengthening a new habit, one that will serve you for a lifetime. So, as you go about your day, challenge yourself. Catch your reactions. Observe them. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I responding? And if you found this video helpful, take the next step. Try one of the techniques we covered today and share your experience in the comments. Which method resonated with you the most? What situations challenge you the most when it comes to responding instead of reacting? Also, if you want to dive deeper into emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and self-control, check out the next video on the screen. There, we'll explore even more practical ways to master your mind and take control of your emotions. Thank you for watching. Keep practicing, keep growing, and remember, you have more control than you think.